You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are watching, listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Well, today is August 9th, 2021, and we got John Rubino with us, dollarcollapse.com. Make sure you go there, subscribe to his newsletter and his frequent updates. You don't want to miss one. Well, we're now becoming the Layaway Nation, Layaway America. And John, this is like a hot business that's, the old saying, everything that's old is new again.
Yeah, Kerry, the world gets weirder every time you and I talk, and this is a perfect example of it, because basically what's happening is tech companies have revived the idea of the layaway, which is what our parents and grandparents used to do when they didn't have the money to buy something. They would have the store put it off to the side, and then they would make payments until they were paid up, and then they could take the thing home. Well, the new version of that is you go ahead and buy it, but the app you buy it through allows you to make periodic payments until the thing is paid off, interest-free. So it's basically a version of a credit card, but for people who don't have credit cards, I guess. I don't know. It's what it is, though, and what it illustrates is that the debt slaves don't have enough ways to borrow. They need this new way to borrow. And the companies that are pioneering it are hot growth stocks. One of them just got bought out for some insane amount of money. And the others are like Silicon Valley darlings now, So it goes to show anything that will convince people to borrow more money from here on is a hot concept and a big innovation. And even layaways qualify.
They're just bringing up to date something that's over a century old. I think it goes back to the late 1800s. You'd go to the general store. You couldn't afford that pickaxe. You put 50 cents down and you keep paying them 50 cents a week until you're all paid off. And then you pick up the pickaxe. And that's where we're at in America today. That's why it's the layaway nation. Well, it's just boggles the mind, John, that these companies could be hot acquisition candidates. Who's buying them? Payday lenders?
Yeah, any kind of a finance company just adds that to their portfolio of borderline cons that they're selling to people right now. So yeah, I think it's got a broad appeal within the banking sector and the financial community in general. Probably everybody will be doing that now pretty soon.
Hey, well, it's just kind of funny when you think about it. It's just like they'll probably securitize the stream of income that's coming in from the layaway plan, right? And then you'll be buying layaway bonds. Is that what's going to happen next?
Of course. Everything is securitized. That's a given as soon as they ramp this thing up. But it'll be interesting because it's relatively short-term paper. So the bonds will look a little different, but the concept will be the same. They will find a way to securitize this. Don't worry.
Hey, if they can securitize margarita makers like on South Park, remember that episode where the Stanley gets an unlimited American Express card because everybody in South Park, their cards have been cut off by the banks. So he then allows everybody to go onto his credit card so that since he's unlimited, everyone else's credit's unlimited, and then South Park starts prospering again. But at one point, he wants his father to return the margarita maker, but his father can't because it's been securitized. And Stanley takes a trip up to Wall Street, and it's an eye-opener because if you remember, there's a bunch of guys around a table, and they have to make decisions. But the way they make decisions is they cut the head off a chicken, and then wherever the chicken lands on the wheel, that's the decision they make. And that's how decisions get made on Wall Street. So anyways, just a brief digression there, but life imitating South Park yet again. You can securitize that margarita maker and keep the economy going, which is the important thing, right, John?
Well, in Keynesian economics, that is the important thing. It doesn't matter how you get your growth, as long as people are buying 2 or 3 more% a year of stuff, then you're a healthy society. It doesn't matter how much you had to borrow to make that happen.
Yeah, and as long as they buy 2 or 3% more stuff that you don't need, that's the key, because that's how we keep the economy going. And in the meantime, the things that are real, like gold and silver, getting totally whacked. And I don't want to sound the conspiracy theory bandwagon, if you will. But if I was a conspiracy theorist and I saw $4 billion worth of gold contracts dumped in the access markets where no real trading takes place at 4 a.m, I might get suspicious.
Well, it's not a surprise that gold and silver are getting whacked, actually, because they've been releasing a lot of trial balloons in the last week or two from central banks about maybe tightening again, because we're in danger of overheating based on some of the most recent economic data that's come out. And so central banks are feeling the pressure to do something about it, because what if a 3.5% unemployment rate causes inflation to pick up? They don't want to get there to find out. But they also are afraid of what the markets will do when they tighten. So they're just, they're making really oblique references and having, one guy at a time come out and say, I think we should start tightening next year. We should taper by the end of the year. Things like that are really mild and don't imply any kind of actual action. And certainly aren't actions in and of themselves. Yeah. But they're trying to figure out what the financial markets think. And normally the financial markets just tank. There's the concept of the pre-taper tantrum, where the stock market tanks just because the Fed is talking about tightening at some indeterminate point in the future by a tiny little amount. And so they're doing that again. And gold and silver are reacting the way the financial markets tend to react to that. What's interesting is that the stock market is down a little bit today, at least last I looked it was, but it's not crashing. So it's only gold and silver right now that are reacting to it that way. So we'll see if the rest of the financial markets catch up, or if this is just a gold and silver specific flash crash here. But either way, I mean, this is just background noise, because in the long run, nobody can tighten ever again. That's never going to happen. We will never see interest rates go up dramatically ever again. We'll never see the Fed cut its balance sheet by half ever again. They can never do that, because they will tank the over-leveraged financial markets everywhere in the world. So anybody who's worried about tightening's effect on their assets, like if you own gold and silver and you're afraid that all of a sudden monetary policy is going to tighten up, don't worry. That's not going to be the thing that hurts you, because it's easy money to the horizon. And that horizon is basically a cliff that we're going to fall off, and at that point, all bets are off. But as long as we're heading for the cliff, but not yet going over the cliff, money's going to be very easy, which is a good environment for precious metals and for other hard assets. And squiggles like those of the last couple of days are just buying opportunities. It's a chance to grab some cheap mining stocks or something like that, or get some silver with a low premium. That's what you should be doing in the face of something like this. Not in any way panicking, because this run has a long way to go before it ends.
Yeah. And we could even see it go lower than it is. It could go into the 1600s easily.
Sure.
The silver hit 22, although silver's chart looks a little better than gold's. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention, and you were talking about the economy being overheated. There's 1.4 million more jobs than there are unemployed people in the country. So something's got to give. I mean, imagine that people would actually stay unemployed because they're getting paid to do nothing. Who would ever think that could happen? And according to some people don't believe that's the case, but we know categorically now in the petri dish of economics, we've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt the states where they got rid of the bonus unemployment and the emergency programs have seen their job increases way higher than the states that have not gotten rid of it and are still seeing high unemployment. We've seen it happen in state after state.
Yeah. So the COVID era benefits have to eventually go away. And it's the same thing with the rent and eviction moratoriums, where you literally don't have to pay your landlord right now if you don't want to. And I think it's the same thing for mortgages, though I'm not sure about that. But those things eventually have to go away too, and those are major negatives for the economy. So that could be part of the reluctance on the part of central banks to ease or to tighten yet at all, because they know there are these big shocks to the system coming out eventually when all of these COVID benefits expire. Although the government's in no hurry to do it. Biden just extended, right? The eviction moratorium.
Illegally extended because it was already shot down by the Supreme Court.
Well,
and yet here we are.
Because it came from the CDC. Since when does the CDC have the power to stop or to tell landlords they don't have to be paid? It's amazing.
Were they going to tell you that you shouldn't get tips from your audience because you could get ill from the change, right?
Well,
it could be certain viruses lurking on the change that you get from the store, so they're going to outlaw change next.
Well, if the health bureaucracy can go into the real estate market and make some gigantic change there, they can go anywhere. Yeah. So who knows? Don't make up any kind of crazy thing that no government should ever do. And the CDC apparently now has the power to do it. But still, this is all temporary. These things have to eventually go away. And that's a big deal for the economy. We have to see what happens. Do 10 million people lose their apartments and their houses and things? Or does nobody lose their apartments and houses because they basically saved enough money while they weren't paying rent in order to get back current with the rent? I don't know. We'll see. Well, there's no way to know that. But I think people will have to go back to work. People who are reluctant now, who can work but aren't for whatever reason, eventually have to do it. And that will make the economy grow even faster, right? More people with more disposable income working. And we're already at extremely low unemployment. Accelerating wage inflation, accelerating overall inflation. And, that's the kind of environment where normally the central bank would be tightening big time. And the fact that that all they can muster right now is a couple of talking heads saying, yeah, maybe at the end of the year, maybe next year, we'll start tapering a little bit, we'll scale back. And the same thing with the federal government's budget, the fiscal budget. We're going to run a $3 trillion deficit this year. And there's really no end in sight to that because we got baby boomers retiring now, and that's going to be a very expensive thing when the government has to pay for our health care and our Social Security going forward. So our deficits are going to get bigger. So that isn't going to go away either. It's clear that this course is the course we're going to take until something happens to end it, until we hit a brick wall or go off a cliff or whatever. And, what can you say? That's phenomenally good for real assets that don't depend on the financial markets, but it's terrible for a lot of other investments that people think of as safe.
You think about how much money the government saved with COVID, killing off all the old elderly, lots of elderly, because it was the people 65 and over. If they'd said, we divide in the lab in Wuhan, and we have to be careful what we say. I'm going to have to edit out any references to certain medical conditions. But imagine if the geniuses in Wuhan said, we have to create an ailment, a sickness, and we're going to call it the Social Security reduction program. Because that's what they did here. Social Security and Medicare, because those hundreds of thousands of people who should still be around, hanging out in nursing homes or whatever, are gone, and they're no longer a burden to the state. So I guess the geniuses at Wuhan really knew what they were doing, John.
Well, if you need a conspiracy theory that actually makes sense, it is kind of suspicious that just as we head into this massive demographic cost period, when all the old people are going to have to be paid all the stuff that they're owed, that a disease comes along that just kills those old people and unhealthy people who also cost society a lot of money. The timing is pretty suspicious, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't have any proof of this, but
no wonder those mortality predictions were so high in the beginning. They were just counting the amount of money in New York. The state through Medicaid pays for nursing homes, and now they got 20,000 less people nursing homes to pay for. So it's a morbid thought, but certainly one that we've heard things equally as bad. Hey, so we're talking about medically necessary creeping fascism, right?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Torque Resources is an exploration company establishing a portfolio of premier copper-gold early-stage projects in Chile. Torque's management and technical teams have a strong track record of raising capital, discovery, and monetization of exploration successes. The company's Margarita copper-gold project is located within the prolific coastal Cordillera Belt in Chile, which hosts some of the world's largest and most profitable copper mines. The Margarita project possesses excellent discovery potential for a major copper discovery due to the strength of the alteration system, large-scale magnetic targets, and the presence of copper oxide mineralization. Drilling is anticipated to begin in Q3 of this year. Torque trades in Canada under TORQ and on the OTC under TRBMF. To learn more, go to torqueresources.com. That's torqueresources.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Yeah. Authoritarianism used to be something that had to be implemented kind of on the down low. You would do something, but you would give it a nice sounding name, and you would make sure everybody knew it was temporary and that they could count on you, blah, blah, blah. It was something you kind of had to implement with some concern to people's response to it. But lately, that's all gone. They're just doing whatever they feel like. Just a few examples. In Germany, they've made demonstrations illegal now, basically. You can't just take to the streets anymore. But they just allowed a big one. There's a picture of it in an article that I posted on dollarclaps.com where it's people to the horizon. It's I don't even remember what the point of the get-together was, but it was very popular. And they allowed that to happen. But if 20 Germans want to get together to protest COVID lockdowns or mandatory vaccines or anything, that's illegal. And the cops will just wade in there with billy clubs and tear gas. There are a lot of pictures of middle class, kind of sort of well-dressed people out there in the streets, and the cops just wailing on them in Germany. So they're not taking prisoners here, and they're not. There's no pretense to anything. Like, okay, they say it's about public health, but in these other places, these other get-togethers that are allowed to happen, same thing. But they're anyhow. That's one thing, and another one is. There's a dating app for the unvaccinated, and Apple closed that down on their app store because they said it didn't approach the pandemic in a serious enough way. And then let's see, last but least, what was the last one? Let me see. I've got my notes here. Somebody just lately on a Twitter and other social media feed posted kind of a factual account of Hitler, the 100th anniversary of Hitler taking power in Germany. That's when he got elected to the head of the National Socialist Party, in other words, the Nazi Party. And Instagram took that down because apparently pictures of Hitler are triggering now. So anyhow, weird stuff happening out there that are all infringements on what we used to think of as basic freedom, things that could never be taken away from us. And now they're finding excuses to take those things away wholesale, not even hiding their motivations a lot of time, just going ahead and doing it. So things are getting scarier at an accelerating rate. And, what we've got to look forward to are vaccine passports and companies that won't hire you or they'll fire you if you don't. Like CNN just fired 3 staffers because they weren't vaccinated. So there are a lot of things coming that a lot of people might define as authoritarianism. that are just being implemented right now without a lot of regard to what anybody's going to do about it. Because apparently they think they've got us so cowed that that they can basically do this stuff without any fear of a backlash. So we'll see. Hopefully there is a backlash, but so far not much in the U.S.
Yeah, well, I'll believe it when I see it, but it seems like Europe, even Canada, is ahead of us on the rebellion against restricting their freedoms for questionable purposes and questionable rationale involved in it. Well, cryptos seem like they're back in vogue, and that could be the ultimate sucker rally. We'll see about that, but Bitcoin hit 35K. And Ethereum broke 3,100. So maybe, just maybe, that's what we're going to see here.
Well, it has been a huge comeback for cryptos. Yeah, Bitcoin's up 50% from its low. And because with cryptos, we don't have any way of calculating intrinsic value yet. There's no way to say whether it's undervalued or overvalued here, based on the perception of the people in that market. So they could rock from here, or they could go back down. There's no way to know. And a lot of it has to do with the macro environment. Cryptos are seen as some people see them as tech stocks. So they buy them when they're feeling optimistic. Some people see them as a store of value, digital gold, and they buy them when they're worried, which is, kind of a nice feature of cryptos, because that means that in any environment, there's an excuse for buying them. And we'll see. I mean, I don't have any real sense of where Bitcoin should be in another year or anything like that. But the moves are really fascinating. A tremendous amount of money is being made and lost in cryptos lately. And there's no reason to think that won't continue, that it won't be a really, really volatile asset class until we figure out whether governments are going to come in and just try to snuff them out, or whether the broadening acceptance of cryptos in corporate payment systems will make them bulletproof. There'll be so many people using them that governments won't be able to do anything about them. We'll see. That's part of the really interesting couple of years that we have ahead of us, when these new things that are really unprecedented in human history are going to happen. We've never borrowed this kind of money. We've never screwed up our finances on a scale that we're screwing them up. We've never had digital money emerge from the private sector and challenge big fiat currencies. So all of this is stuff that's going to work itself out over the next few years, and it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch if you can avoid being terrified by the other stuff that's happening.
Yeah, that's the big if, isn't it? That's the really big if. But hey, it's a brave new world that moves ahead. Speaking of technology and such, SpaceX's Starlink, which is Musk's SpaceX company's internet service that's going to be global. There's hundreds of satellites up in the atmosphere now, and that has other effects. We're not going to get into that, but pretty soon the speeds, they say, they're rivaling they're as good as other satellite internet, if not better. And pretty soon they're going to rival standard plain old broadband.
Yeah. This is actually a much bigger deal than just, you'll have another internet option out there. Because it's bringing broadband, not just, crappy 25 Mbps and, intermittent, which is what you get with satellites right now, internet, to basically everybody. So if you're in a small town that doesn't have good service, you're going to get it pretty soon. If you're in a cabin in the woods, you're going to get it. And that's going to be a big deal demographically, because all of a sudden people who can work online, but have to be somewhere where they can have super fast internet in order to do it, they can live anywhere, So that means that, first of all, places like Montana and parts of Idaho are just going to boom, because lots of people would like to live in a place like that, but they can't work there because the internet's not fast enough. Well, it's going to be fast enough pretty soon. So it's going to be interesting to see what that means for cities, first of all, because people already kind of sort of want to move out of a lot of big cities, but they have to be someplace where they can continue to work. And if they can live anywhere, I think the impulse to get a homestead or a cabin in the woods is going to be very strong for a lot of people. So we're going to see a lot of population movements with this technology being implemented. And they are talking about gigabit speeds ultimately with this satellite internet system. So that rocks. You can do any kind of video basically with gigabit speeds. You can have a professional level podcasting set up.
Very true.
From basically anywhere, and that's going to be an interesting thing to watch happen. And I've signed up for it, so I'll keep you posted. With any luck, I'll have it in a couple of months and let you know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely give us a review, John, because I'm curious about it. That's the whole thing with 5G, I think, is a defensive maneuver by the telephone carriers to give you like gigabit speeds on your phone and thereby do away with the need for cable-based broadband or phone company-based broadband because you won't need the infrastructure to actually implement it because it'll be on your phone. And that's kind of what what SpaceX is offering as well. Hopefully SpaceX's service is less controversial than 5G, which everybody's convinced it's going to destroy humanity. But maybe it's another plot to reduce Social Security and Medicare expenditures, John. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that we are bathing ourselves in electromagnetic radiation. and it's a big experiment that we're running that we don't know what the long-term effects of stuff like this might be because we've never had long-term exposure before, and I think the next couple of generations will discover whether it's a horrible thing or whether it's totally benign. And, if it's a horrible thing, it could be one of those things you can't escape from. There's nothing you can do about it after you've been exposed to something that's dangerous and causes what it's going to cause. So we'll see. I don't know. That's a longer term problem. And we have so many short term problems now to focus on and obsess over that I'm going to put that one on the back burner and just worry about the other stuff we talked about today.
So funny. Hey, I was just thinking like, I had this really great internet service. The last place I lived before I moved here, it was gigabit both directions. And the only time it slowed down was when the kids got home from school. This one here, there's no kids at school, so it never slows down, but it's a gigabit coming down. It's only 50 megabits going up. So they figure it's not as important going up as coming down, that you can browse quickly. You don't need to send all that data up that quickly. I don't know what their motivation is, but I think if SpaceX eventually gets this fast, they're going to have some serious competition on their hands. And then eventually it'll all just be one company that provides internet service, right? Because that's the way everything works.
Yeah, that is, yeah. But SpaceX doesn't necessarily have to compete with city level gigabit internet to be a really successful business, because there's a huge part of the population that has crappy internet right now. So if you can supply just pretty good satellite broadband, there's a gigantic market out there, and that's just the U.S. This is global. So the entire developing world now is going to get fast internet. So it's a big deal. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because it's. You remember Iridium way back then?
That was Motorola. That failed. Technology wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah. So this is like the next iteration of that. But this sounds like it's got tech that works. And so it might finally fulfill the promise of Iridium from way back when. Because I remember when everybody was all pumped up about that, and it just never got customers because it was too expensive. So.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, that is it for this week. Make sure you go over to dollarcollapse.com, sign up for John's newsletter, check out his latest writings, go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, do the same, and email us any questions for John or myself, any criticisms. We'd like to get them. The email address is kl@kerrylutz.com. That's it. John, we will catch up with you again in a couple of weeks.
See you, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Carrie Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.